So we're here, getting ready to put on the steering wheel. Thanks for joining us, stay tuned. Alright, so here we are working on the car. We're getting the seat done. We've got the bracket welded in just now. So the plan now is to go ahead and get this seat installed, get the steering wheel mounted up, and get this thing back on the ground so we can load it up on the trailer. As you can see, we got the car back here in my shop. We'll be finishing up the wiring on the LS and going over some of the driveline components. My coilovers came in today, and I also have a 5-lug setup, so I'm going to be swapping those things out and getting the suspension off. We'll eventually be going back over to Morgan's shop to finish up the fuel cell, the front dash bars, and the rear dash bars. So in the meantime, we're just going to go ahead and get the little things we can get knocked out. Thank you guys for following along. Alright, so here's a quick tip for anybody who's had a struggle with these ball joints. These things are actually slightly elliptical. You don't have to hit the threads to knock these out. So you can just give them a tap on the side. Pop right out. So you want to hit, you can see that, you want to hit on the top of the circle there, and it should pop right out. So you don't have to damage your threads. You don't have to use the split tool, which will damage the rubber boot. It's a much safer and much more convenient way to get the ball joints and tie rods off. All right, so we've got the new set of coilovers here, and this is just out of the box. They're completely unset up, and Andrew's gonna go over a little bit about what it takes when you first get a set.
Yeah, when you first get a set of coilovers, they're going to just be roughly assembled just so all the parts are there, they don't fall off. And the first thing you actually want to do is, we've got it up here, but we're going to actually take the coilover off, take the spring off all the perches as well. And the point of this is you want to get the coilover installed in the car without the spring, put all the components back on, and then you're going to basically put this thing at full bump or compress the coilover all the way, because you want to check your clearances. You want to make sure that when this coilover bottoms out, because it's going to bottom out while you're driving, even if you don't notice it, you don't want your wheel, your tire, whatever, running into any parts of the body, because you're going to start cutting your tire, and worst case scenario, you'll get a flat. And then once we have the coilover height, and basically what you're going to do to adjust that, you're going to adjust this, not the preload at all, because the spring won't even be on there. And once you get that height locked in and all set, then you'll go ahead, put the spring back on, and put the car on the ground with all the components, the full weight, and get the ride height to where you want, the ride height to where you want it.
So we got the wheel back on and we've got the spring removed, and we're going to continue talking about what the full compression looks like, and we're talking about the ride height.
Yeah, the ride height. So once we have the ride height to where you are, I guess to adjust the ride height, you're going to be adjusting you can adjust your knuckle down farther, like on the shock, but you could also adjust where the spring sits, or basically the spring preload, to get the ride height to where you want. And that's kind of like a Band-Aid fix, but it'll probably work for most people. Another thing you can do if you want to get more in depth is actually taking the spring off and getting a different weight spring. And the way that the springs are weighed is like how many kilograms it takes to compress the spring 1 millimeter, or how many pounds it takes to spring to compress 1 inch. And with that, if you know the change that you want to make, you can calculate the different weight spring you want to do.
And I'm just assuming, because I don't know exactly, but with a heavier engine like this, we want a little more preload, or?
Yeah, so we want either a heavier spring, or you can add a little preload on this when you have a heavier engine than stock. But really the best way to do it is, well then I guess to even further adjust preload, we're going to want to corner balance the car and get the weight, just build cross weights correct. And we can go over that in a future video, I think.
Yeah, I think that'll be a great video. And so yeah, the LS is not too much heavier than the SR.
No, it's honestly really not. The iron block, no, this is the aluminum block, so yeah, it's really not.
Yeah.
Because the spring rates change usually by 25 to 50 pounds per inch. So that's like a decent amount of change. And when you're adding maybe 50 or 60 pounds to from your car, you just do it with preload.
Okay.
So the one thing that we will be worried about, and we can look at, is spring bind. So we can't lower this too much, or we'll get to a point where when the suspension is fully compressed, the spring's going to fully compress as well, and the spring coils will bottom out on each other before we hit the bump stop on the shock, and that's definitely a no-no, because it jars really hard, and also when you're compressing the spring that much, you're going to have much more like uncontrolled energy coming when it expands. So that's going to really upset the handling of the car.
Yeah, bouncing and the wheel being off the ground is definitely a problem in drifting, because if the car is not on the ground, you're not sliding properly.
So what we can do with the spring, we'll measure the thickness of the coil with
Calipers.
Yep, and we'll just multiply. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you can measure whatever this distance is going to be. We'll get the total collapse height of the spring, and we'll just make sure that we can put that in here and put the parts on and everything and not have any issues.